Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all the guests of our highly informative startup panel discussion behind the scenes of startup, organized by Pune Startup Fest 22. Let us begin with the introduction of our esteemed panelists. First, we have with us Mr. Satnik Roy. Hello, sir. Welcome to our fest. Satnik sir is the founder of HyperXchange. He is one of the top entrepreneurs who has featured in Forbes India 30 Under 30 in 2021. Talking about his company, HyperXchange is the India's fastest growing firm for refurbished electronics. Our next panelist is Mr. Shripal Gandhi. Hello, sir. Welcome. Shripal sir is the founder and CEO of Sensing Self. Sensing Self aspires to serve humanity by empowering individuals to detect and learn about their well-being through the accessibility of bioscience. Apart from all this, he is also a national award winner and has been a CNBC Young Turk. We also have with us Mr. Saurabh Mangrulkar. He is founder of EventBeep and COEP. We can connect with students from other colleges with similar interest. His team was recently featured on Shark Tank India and funding from Ashnir Grover, Aman Gupta sir, and Piyush Bansal sir. Last but not least, our moderator for today's discussion is Advait Purleskar sir. He is the CEO of Upohan Management Consultants. Upohan is a boutique management consulting firm engaging with clients on a long-term basis to partner with and facilitate their journey towards the achievement of organized goals. In Sanskrit, Upohan means applied wisdom. Work philosophy. Sir, I'll be muting now.
Okay. So thanks, Sumit, and thanks for the wonderful but quick and short and crisp introduction. Good evening, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here and talking to, like was mentioned, my esteemed panelists. So the topic we're going to discuss about is behind the scenes kind of thing. Picture to hota hai, picture ke piche kya hai, and therefore, we're going to try and understand what goes behind making of a startup. And maybe I have three S's here: Satnik, Saurav, and Shripal. So in that alphabetical order, as they say. So before we start our discussion, maybe I can ask each one of them to tell us more about their success story, share their stories, and more importantly, what went behind the scenes for all of us to understand, buy, learn, and adapt. And then obviously I have some questions to ask based on what goes on, and we can go on with that. So maybe, like I said, the first letter is very clear, SSS. So I'll start with you, Sapnik, going on the alphabetical order. So over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me over here, esteemed panelist Shabam. Thank you so much. I am the co-founder of a startup called HyperXchange. We are currently India's #1 brand for refurbished electronics. I started my journey around 5.5 years back from my college dorm room. Being a mechanical engineer, we grew up with CAD and CAM, right? Those are the things we learn as part of our regular life. And just like any other college student, I mean, when you need high-end devices for that, just like any other college student, we do not have deep pockets, right? So realizing the fact, my only other options are probably the GAFAR markets or say the Lamington roads of the world, right? That was the first time probably, I came across this industry, which I realized, at that point of time, say, when you go to a GAFAR market, leave alone warranty, you do not even know if the product is a stolen product or not. 99% of this, even though it exists everywhere, right? 99% of this business is a gray market, unstructured market, right? Back in 2016, around a $25 billion opportunity, that is what I realized, if we can structure or create a brand out of it, right? The biggest thing is trust over here, right? So creating a brand out of it might be a good option, right? Post that 2020 happened with work from home, study from home, and net disposable income of people coming down. This market suddenly flourished to become a $100 billion market almost, in a single year. That was the type of growth. And right now, what we realized is the biggest thing, the biggest gold mine we are sitting on is probably not creating a refurb market. Is actually how do I define the story that I'm creating a planet positive venture out there. I mean, for every refurbished device that is being sold out, there's probably a device and it's not being manufactured, right? Selling 25,000 devices a month, we are saving almost 30,50,000 kilograms of, say, carbon dioxide emission out there in the world. And you need silicon, aluminum, and other rare earth metals, right? So, excavating all this art blocks is something which is also dropping down. That's the story. That's HyperXchange, and that's my journey. Thank you so much.
Okay, lovely. It is very interesting for that for the kind of business you're doing. You're putting the ESG is the current buzzword, so you're putting the ESG buzzword, and it is of course relevant because by ensuring that the older kind of appliances remain in circulation, you are ensuring that we are not further kind of what should I say, destroying our planet Earth. So great to hear, and I'll come back to you, Sapni. Over to you, Saurabh.
So I think starting with my journey, I started pretty early when I was sort of 14, 15 years old and started building an NGO. Post that, I sort of started organizing events for college students. That's pretty much when I saw the practical side of things. The moment I got into college, I realized it's such a waste of time because all was being taught was donkey work, which is assignments, just copying down assignments which the faculties themselves have given. So I realized I'd seen this practical side of things, NGO, build, startup, and I thought students are actually wasting time actively in college because everything is there, it's just theoretical knowledge. And that's when I started my first startup, which was events ticketing platform, just like Book My Show, but for college events. And the whole intention was get out of college, make sure that you see the practical world. And that's what essentially is going to help you in future. So we started with that platform. We did about 2 crores in GMV in the first year. And post that, I realized the problem is even bigger. Events is again one thing. We would want to sort of build the community which a tier 1 college specifically has. Typically like IIT or NITs, and that is not available for all the colleges across. So that's specifically what was the idea behind starting EventBeep. We realized that the education system needs a big revamp, and a lot of elements of it are missing. Students are just following because Papa ne bola ki engineering banega ya doctor banegi. That's the typical idea which is followed. So yeah, we wanted to change that. We wanted students to say ki the fashion designer banuna, or I would really love to become a dancer. So that's something how we started EventBeep, and that has been the journey so far. Yeah.
Excellent. So it's a very relevant thing because the kind of audience we have today is all students, as you get told, from engineering and other colleges, and this is organized by QAT, as you know. So I'm sure you'll get traction after this event. So that becomes a great market for you. No, just joking.
Yes.
Okay. So Shripal, what's your story in terms of what you're doing, and then we'll come back to some more questions.
Sure. I always believed the belief you hold in the beginning of the journey defines your journey. I've been an extremely mediocre, shy student throughout my life. Never went to English medium, studied all throughout in Marathi medium in a small town called 𝐿𝐭𝐵. And that's how my journey started. Couldn't utter a single word in English or a sentence till 12th standard. And then I studied in Mumbai, went to US, did my master's. Wanted to come back to India, never wanted to settle in US. It was very clear. I don't know why, maybe because they rejected my visa 3 times. But I always wanted to come back and, do something here in India. So at the earliest opportunity, I moved back, but I realized what India needs now. Let me focus on that. So water was one category, solar was another. So I chose to work for a water. I built a water company, water purification treatment company, ran it for 3 years, and then sold that company. My second stint started with the mobility space. That time the telecom boom was happening, like what Chatnik just also mentioned. So launched a brand, earlier Beyond, and then called as Swipe, which was the India's most affordable tablet PCs brand. And we became one of the largest Indian player within first 3 years. First year itself, we crossed more than 100 crores. Within first 3 years, we had already crossed 250 crore rupees of revenue. And I think it's been a very, very interesting growth journey, which started with only 4 people in July 25, 2012. And fast forward 2017, 18, then I transitioned because I realized through personal health journeys, health is something which is very dear to my heart. And I did not know that COVID or pandemic was coming, but I think this was kind of an intuitive thing. We forayed into that because I was detected with pre-diabetic, and I realized that going to lab, giving the blood either from your venous blood or from your finger prick, you have to keep pricking the finger, draw the blood, and it's such a painful process. Or you go to give you a sample, whether it is urine or blood, and wait for the results to come. So the whole thought process was, can we do something wherein instead of we going to lab, we can bring the lab at home, right? In today's world, everything is coming on our mobile. So the whole idea was, can we bring this complete disruption when it comes to new age diagnostics? Because it is not traditional big fat machine. Can we combine it with mobility, artificial intelligence, machine learning, image processing? And I think that's where the journey of Sensing Self started. Now, this is very interesting. We started in 2017. Then pandemic happened. We had no product. We were still in research mode for first 3 years. Pandemic again gave us a big boost in terms of, because we quickly flipped ourselves into a saliva-based COVID platform. We built a world's first saliva-based test for COVID. And now we are ready after almost 4.5 years of research to launch world's first a test which you just keep it under your tongue. This is a test which you keep it under your tongue, take it out and take a picture with your phone. And that's all. Immediately you get your blood sugar level without drawing a drop of blood, no needle, no pricking, no pain. And this is for everybody. This is not only for people who are diabetic, for pre-diabetic, and also for people like us, you, me, and also I'm assuming, all the audience who is watching us. Once in a while, once in a month, once in 2 months, we all should test it. And this is the easiest way to test it without any pain, without any needle. So that's what has been keeping us busy. And I think we really believe this is a space wherein we can really create a huge impact and make it affordable to masses all over the world. So that's Sensing Self.
Okay. Excellent. Sensing Self. So, would you, sticking with you, Shripal, would you consider yourself lucky to get the right product at the right time and then incidentally COVID happened?
Oh, I have been always a very opportunistic thinker. So if you ask me this question, my answer will always be yes. It's so whatever on the circumstances, I will always think through and make them work in my favor.
Okay. But since you mentioned about your earlier ventures also, and looks like you're a serial entrepreneur. As a startup, and this is a startup test, and these are student entrepreneurs. My question to all of you, and I'll start with you, Shripal, again, is that there is this unfortunately vicious cycle that I don't have a customer, so nobody talks to me. Nobody talks to me, so I don't have a customer. And all these successful startup people like you or mentors like me say, scale up, go to market, scale up. How do I get my first customer? How do you get your first customer? And this is, I'll take this question to all three of you.
So I think for us, if I look at all the earlier ventures or even in Sensing Self, though the nature of the product varies drastically, industry also changed. But I think there is something very innate, very unique about an entrepreneur or as a businessman, right? Unless we are sold, how can we sell to the world, right? So unless we have a pride in my product, in my services, how can I sell it to the world? So I think that is paramount. That has to be there. Second thing is now going out, talking to people. I feel that a lot of time these days, this whole startup euphoria being around, a lot of time is spent on building product, developing a product, but very little time is spent actually going on ground, talking to people, whether it is retailers, distributors, or even if it is your potential customer. It can be B2B, SaaS, any of the model. Like, as Chatnik also mentioned, whether it is Lamington Road, Gafar Market, Jagdish Market, these are the markets, but not the sexiest places to go and visit, but the kind of intelligence which we can get when we go there, and really, pull up our sleeves. I think that is what is required. And once we do that, we do get these customers, right? Sometimes it is a direct check that we got our first customer. Sometimes it is a development product, then at least a letter of interest that, hey, this looks cool. We are willing to buy this product subject to XYZ, right? Subject to this approval, which is also okay. But I think at the earliest stage, an entrepreneur, and I think this is a very innate quality of an entrepreneur, he has to get external validation. And getting the first customer is the best external validation. There is no second validation required.
Sure.
Yeah.
But some of our students in the audience may not like the answer you are trying to give. Basically, you're saying first principle: do hard work, do smart work, and that's how you get your customer. It's no easy job. How
There
has
is no
been your
easy way.
experience? What's your experience, sort of how would you get your first customer? How did you get your first customer?
I think the whole problem, I think the reason why you sort of start any particular thing is because you see the problem. Now, if you say that you see the problem, then you obviously know where the customers are. So how did we sort of get our first customers? Ours was a platform, a community product. So how did we start? Was we started a WhatsApp group. We didn't go with app. We didn't go with website. So we said let's say the community is a problem. That students are not finding mentors or people like them. We started with the adventure community. We started putting people who are adventurous in Pune, who want to go on treks and really want to explore. We started with putting a lot of mentors in terms of they can explore. So that's how we started. People started loving it. The first question you ask is, will people be willing to pay for it? That's something which again gives a validation. That so what we said, if you want to be on the group, pay us 50 rupees, pay us 100 rupees. If you pay, then it means that something you're building is valuable. So people did end up paying.
How many people deserted immediately after you asked this question?
There were about 100 people on the group. 30 people left the group, but 70 sort of had like a good community. Yeah. So yeah, with that, I think we had like a good proof of concept that let's build this and for a bigger audience. That's how we started the app also. Yeah.
Great. So started with WhatsApp group and then moved on to app after you got a proof of concept that at least 70 of the 100 are ready to pay.
Correct. So we went to Discord then. We built a Discord community also, because a lot of engagement, audio rooms, it worked pretty well. We could see it was working. And then we sort of just quickly built our own app. Post that.
Yeah. Satvik, what's your story on the first customer? But it's pehla customer.
I'll just go a little back from the customer phase, right? I think that the question was more like, how do you start, right? And just like Shripal was mentioning, it's a trait, right? Because entrepreneurs find their way. I mean, I don't come from a family which was ever into business. No one probably in my family has ever done business before, right? I was a mechanical engineering student, right? And HyperXchange is my second startup. So my first startup, I was building something more of a consultancy based, right? And I did not even have the idea that there has to be proper registration done before you take interns. So these were the early days of internshala. So they did not have any background validation, any background check, etc. Right? You could easily just float an internship out there. Right? There I was managing 15 people across India, sitting out of my college dorm room, right? And in the name of a company which was not even registered. Slowly over a period of time, we realized, we learned, I started learning how things work, how things don't work, right? And so today, when you're coming into the industry, say in case you're selling a product, right? It's not a service. Then you realize the first thing probably is a wiser option. How do I use the existing platforms that are already available, right? Just like sort of use WhatsApp, right? If you're selling a product, probably you don't try to create your website on day one. Rather go out, go to Amazon, go to Flipkart, just list your products out there, right? They already have the footfall. If you're trying to get spend money over SEOs, etc., it will take you at least a long time. Almost a year or 6 months period of time. You have to pay those commissions out and utilize those platforms. That is the way to go forward in the first place. Right? They already have those customers out. Right. The next thing is where probably once you're already in the market, then you focus on creating the brand. Right? That is where you start channelizing your own. Say, for example, your own, website, you start channelizing your own app, branding it. That is the second step towards the focus, right? And I believe, down the line, that's the only way to build and scale and grow.
Yeah. But, something speaking with you, just to take on what Saurabh just mentioned. that, as a startup founder, my immediate, I want to do a proof of concept, paid or unpaid or whatever, with my friends and family. I always joke about it, called it friends and family plan. And, is it a double-edged sword is my question. Because, normally your friends and family will always say, yeah, good, great, very good, aage badho, you'll doing good, don't worry, we are with you, kind of thing. And maybe they don't like the product, maybe they have 20,000 questions around it, but, kaise puche? Apna hi hai, beta hai, or whatever, nephew hai, dost hai, whatever kind of thing. So, but they are your immediate network, and therefore, you don't know anybody. You can't stand outside a a railway station and say, "Hey, do you like my product?" kind of thing. So I want to first test it out with people I know, I have trust, I have comfort with. But these could be the same people who are not exactly giving you, I would say, objective kind of thing. So, what would be your advice to startup founders? Is it the right way, and till what level you should believe in these kind of feedbacks?
I mean, there are two ways to look at it, right? I often get the question, a very similar question. I'll speak about the context. So I often get a question: should we start a startup right out of college? Should we, take up a job, gain experience, and go and start a startup? End of the day, whatever you do, it's your idea. I mean, what is the thing you are looking out of it, right? So definitely the point you're mentioning over here, if you think on the other lines, what do you really want to create in life? You want to do a business, which will be, 1x, 2x, 3x, or do you want to scale a startup, which will be 1x, 100x, 1000x? These two things are very, very different, right? When I say that, I mean, probably your friends and family could be a first support, definitely. I mean, and hear questions. If someone is questioning you and asking you, why are you doing this? Or say, why is your product color red and not say white, right? Someone else might have that in mind as well. While I say ask questions, it's like being a startup founder. You can take advice from all, but you don't have to follow every advice out there, right? So, not everyone will be a customer. That is something you have to realize.
Yeah.
And whatever probably the product changes, which you feel is a valid point, right? You feel I can take this and I should definitely implement this. Those are the things you should be looking at. And friends and family could be your first set of customers, but for how long? Because the entire group of those people are very limited. You can probably sell, say, 10 things out to them for once. The next time you go to them, they will again say, come back probably at a later stage. Right? As a support, definitely yes, but as a customer, I don't think that's true.
Sure. Saurabh, I'll just pick up from what Swapnil just said, that here, listen to them in terms of their suggestions, etc. Now, you and me are in Pune, if you ask 5 people, they'll give you 6 suggestions. So, whom to listen to, whom to not to?
And I think what it translates to is primarily, I think, unless and until, that's for sure. I think a lot of people say, great product, I think go ahead. They don't know, first of all, a lot of things. I think the best validation I would suggest is ask them for money. Ask them that, will you pay for it? 100 rupees or something like that. So unless and until, they don't sort of pay money out, they don't really see the value. I think that's it. That is like a clearer vision for you to understand. Is it's so valuable that they're ready to pay? Again, it's a business. If they're not willing to pay for it, that doesn't mean that you're sort of building a business. So again, the problem is not big enough, and it's not something it's solvable to. So it depends. Although it depends on a lot of businesses, different types of business, but that's a good place to start off with.
So I'll just pick up a question that has come up, and I'll just paraphrase that question maybe to you, Shripal, that this is your third or fourth venture, but obviously everything would not have been hunky-dory. You would have had your own share of failures as well. Like Saurabh mentioned, 30% of these people walked away when you started asking money. So anything that you can share in terms of failures, and how did you learn from it, and how did you grow from it? I mean, how did you come out from it?
Sure, absolutely. So I think, I'll share some of the learnings. I think one of the learning is before even we come to the product. And I think, it is about, having the right kind of co-founders, right? Which have complementary skill, not necessarily the supplementary skills. Second thing is, this very early understanding that everything has to be sold, because I think God is also a salesman, the Prime Minister is also a salesman. Everything has to be sold. Nothing gets sold on its own. No product, however cool it is not getting, it doesn't get sold on its own. Even God has to be sold. So everything has to be sold. That was the second learning, because I think this happened especially during the early stage of the water business I was running. And it was a great fiasco there, because, I thought we have built something very cool, very unique technology. But unless it is promoted, made aware, it has to be sold with the right decision maker, it won't fly. Third, very interesting learning through, which we learned it very hard way, is unless any organization has its own trajectory of growth, it need not be profitable, but I think sooner or later it has to start making money. Whether it is 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. I personally feel if organization cannot make money for 3 years, unless these are some very exotic models, but I think if it cannot make money for 3 years, then it is very difficult to sustain that business for long run. Because how long you will keep on going on raising more and more capital, because that's where the entrepreneur starts to get burnt out. So this has been a big learning, because here, mobility or mobile tablet is a very high revenue business. And, you are getting drawn into it, that, larger revenues, larger turnover. But at the same time, you don't want to lose one eye, which is on your bottom line and profitability. So I think the second biggest learning, first thing is everything has to be sold, which has come through a lot of failure. Second thing is, nothing grows unless profit grows. Nothing grows unless profit grows, right? So these are the, two solid, hard-hitting learning, which, I kind of came across through all the failures.
Lovely. Swapnik, I'm coming back to you with a point you made, and I'm going to combine with what Shripal just mentioned, that everything has to be sold and profit is important. And you mentioned about 1x, 2x, 3x versus 1x, 10x, 100x. Now, my question is on behalf of all the startups is it always important and necessary that I have to have a $1 million, $1 billion kind of dream? Can't I say that I'm going to start and I'm happy reaching 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore? That's good enough. Why should I always be, in this $1 billion unicorn kind of business? Is it a crime not to think big?
See, as I just mentioned, at my first statement, it's about you who chooses what you do, right? I mean, I have seen many founders, myself as well, right, who are not willing to take the risk, all right, that go in the market, raise capital. They say, no, I don't want to do it. I am happy doing what I am doing. There are so many people out there who are, today probably from their home, they are selling something or the other, right? And I mean, say Tupperware business had grew to a huge extent at a point in time, right? Similarly, there are so many new, say Instagram pages which are probably selling, some odd item or the other. It could be the regular T-shirts, etc. Right? They do not want to scale beyond that, and that is their call, and that is absolutely fine, right? It's always said, howsoever bigger you dream, the risk and the chances of failure are bigger as well, right? See the Paytm story today, right? And absolute, I would say, 21 years of struggle, 21 years of enormous hard work, right? Great story, huge billions and billions of dollars raised. Somewhere today, things did not work as everyone thought it could be, right? Just think, when demonetization happened, right? Yeah. I mean, could not be a better time for Paytm to be in the market, right?
Yeah.
But somewhere not everything falls in place, and failure is something which will happen someday or the other. The thing is, where do you want to see yourself when you fail, right? I mean, two things over here again. I mean, think about a person who has a job. Think about a startup entrepreneur who fails. A person who has a job, if he loses a job, will go to the next company and start negotiating the lakhs per annum. What is the lakhs per annum I am probably able to earn, out of the company. But think about an entrepreneur failure, right? Say today, if I fail, I'll probably go back to corporate and say this part of your business is a 100 crore business. I know how to how to create market. I know how to create distribution. I know how to hire and manage people. I know at the end of the day how do I calculate my EBITDA, right? And I know about raising funds. So this part of your business is a 100 crore business. For next 5 years, I'll scale this to say 700 crores, but I want 100 crores out of it, right?
Yeah.
This is the difference, right? Where do you stay when you fail? That is what you have to choose, right? Could be a regular job, could be a business, could be a unicorn dream or whatsoever.
Sure. So choose. I'll come back to you first. So Sasnik mentioned that choose what you want to do. Now all of us are engineers. Audience is largely engineering students crowd. We all think we are geeks. We are a God gift to mankind. We are this geek. We are this fun to product, and this is what I can do. I have chosen what I want to do. But then I really don't care whether there's a market or the kind of thing. So it's an inside out kind of way of looking at things.
Right.
And I think that there is nobody in the world out there who has never thought of this idea. I'm the only one.
Correct.
And therefore, it is just going to sort of my business is just going to boom. So how do you sort of bring a reality check in terms of what you can do versus what is required? I always when I'm in the mentoring session, I always say that great, you've identified a gap in the market, but how do I know whether there's a market in that gap?
Correct. So I think that's a really sort of difficult thing for someone who's starting out new to understand. And I am like a group. So as I mentioned, I started with an events platform for college fest. And to be honest, every time you start something new, you'll feel that koi kar hi nahi raha hai. Nobody is really doing it. You'll say, you'll search, you'll go on Google, you'll search, if this term is there, you'll not find it. You'll be very happy. No, nobody is really doing it. Koi nahi kar raha, it's a good opportunity. And you sort of get into that field. The moment you get into the field, you realize, arey, ye company, arey, wo bhi company kar rahi hai. So you will start realizing there are hundreds of companies doing the same thing already. And until you don't get into that field, it's very difficult for you also to understand what is it that you need to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the experience comes in. I think I think people sort of reiterate in terms of, especially college students, I would recommend that if you have any sort of idea, I would suggest first research a lot. But I've seen, because I myself had done a lot of research, webinar surveys, सारे चीजें कर चुका था. But still people are चाहिए, हमें चाहिए, we want such platform. Typical student, and especially students though say something else and they want something else. That's very clear to us. So that's something that they said. The moment we got in the industry, we saw hundreds of companies are doing the same thing altogether. We realized, okay, there's no fit. Then you sort of, so it's all on to, you're on your feet all the time that you get into the industry. So that's something that you need to, again, engineers jugaad. So that's where you need to find in the sweet spot. So my suggestion for, I think, students would be get into the field, because unless you don't get it, you will not realize what is the problem. And especially if you're a college student, you have like 2-3 years to sort of understand the market, get into it, see how it works for you. Obviously, start with the research. Don't sort of just put into the industry. And I think you'll realize that, okay, so this company is doing one thing which is really good. Maybe I'll just focus on the smaller segment. I'll focus on a niche, a smaller segment. I'll do it the best. Acquire hua to acha hai, nahi to, I might become the next big thing. So that's the way to go about it.
Start early, do your research well is what you're saying.
Yeah, correct.
Again, all you guys are giving very unpopular answers. I mean, you're saying please work hard, work long hours, do your research, काम करो basically. That's not so there is no, it looks like there is no easy way out to become a startup success.
There's no easy way out. No.
There's no easy way out. Okay. Shripal, so we talked of this Fundu idea. Now we're talking of behind the scenes before you do a startup. In your view, would can every idea be a business? Or
Can every idea be a? Can you just repeat?
Yeah. I just come up with a great idea. Can every idea be a business, or do I need some gating mechanisms to validate that which of this is actually has the potential of becoming a business, becoming a startup?
Sure. I feel, if every idea can turn into business, as long as people are willing to pay for it. If we very objectively look at it in that way. Now, how do you do that? I think that's the key part, right? And from an idea stage to a business stage, what do you do? And I think partly to what Saurabh already mentioned, talking to the right audience, right consumer, right? Who would be our potential consumer? Talking to them. I think we also, when we are starting off, maybe it is an age, but I think now if I were to look back in hindsight, I feel at that age when I'm 21, 22, 23, either I have a formal so-called mentor, or I can go to somebody who is an industry expert, right, in my field, and go talk to them, meet them. I got to have at least 5 or 10 of these dynamic relationships with me if I want to be in business, right, or take that idea to a business. Because there inside, few things come by reading, few things come by research, but few things can only be learned through experience, and there is no substitute to experience, right? So either we spend our time, efforts, and wait for 10 years, or we go to somebody who has that wisdom and actually inherit that from them. So I think that has helped me tremendously, in especially the last 2 businesses I have been involved. And the second thought has always been, rather than kind of talking to, hanging out the same set of people, can I go and approach people who are doing 10x, 100x better than me? Because they have a very different helicopter view at looking at things. The way they evaluate an idea, whether it can be turned into a 10 crore rupees business, 100 crore rupees business, or 1,000 crore rupees business, it's very different. And I think that's where a lot of brain exchange starts happening, and those doors starts opening in the mind. So I think having few dynamic relationships, asking the right kind of audience, whether they are willing to pay for it. I think these are the 2 yardsticks, of course, and backed by all data, research. I would decide whether this idea can be taken into and converted into a business.
Okay, fantastic. Sapnik, in the initial stages, when you're still validating the idea, doing your research, trying to find out who these customers could be beyond your friends and family, like we talked about a little earlier, what would be what I call hot buttons, those first maybe 3 or 4 key metrics that a startup founder should be sort of constantly looking at to sort of gauge whether she or he is on the right track vis-a-vis whatever vision the startup founder has?
So, the issue is we all have ideas, and I think, probably all of us have 10,000 different ideas how to change the world, right? Every day morning. The only difference is there has to be execution. No one knows what will work, what will not work out. I'll give you 2 simple examples over here, right? The first example is something at HyperXchange. What HyperXchange started as, I started HyperXchange as a C2C, customer to customer, say, transactional platform within colleges. That was the first initial idea. Then, we moved to a different model, and then moved to a different model, and probably now we are doing something which is totally different. All right. Why is it? What is the main point over here? Things will evolve over time, right? Probably not everything that starts in a way happens in the same way forever. No one knows the exact answer out there, right? So execution is the only key thing that can lead you somewhere, right? It's not about ideas. It's not about, no one is in this market. No one is doing this. There's a issue. There's a bigger issue with it. If no one is doing it, probably there is no market at all, right? And the second example I'll give is, Flipkart today is probably the biggest startup out there in the country, right? At a massive $40 billion valuation. Why did Flipkart happen? Was Flipkart the first e-commerce? No. Did it have a great investor chest just like Amazon? No. Amazon came to India much earlier as well, right? So why did suddenly Flipkart happen? Because they realized one thing: India is a country where people do not have credit cards and people do not trust to pay online, right? Cash on delivery was something which was first launched by Flipkart. Things mainly said, no, this is probably a flop idea. This will never work. Why will people end of the day give you money, right? I mean, most people might steal the product, this, that. These people just took a call, right? And that changed entirely altogether.
Yeah.
Today, no one before had heard about cash on delivery before, right? It was one thing that changed an entire market altogether. Right? So those are points, say for example, today, if you're starting an e-commerce, right? And, say, probably when Sachin and Binny started, I'm definitely sure cash on delivery was not something they probably already had in mind. They realized this over the time when they were executing what are the challenges happening on a regular basis. Right? So execution is the only key thing. Ideation, I mean, we all have ideas every day morning to change the world, right? And millions of them, and million ways. So execution is the only way.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. So, execution is the main thing. Obviously, you need a team to execute. You can't do everything yourself. So, as a startup and a founder, what has been your experience? How do you attract a team that first buys into your dream, into your vision, believes you, trusts you, and then, of course, gets into execution, like Sapni just mentioned?
Right. So I think I have a lot of things that I have done when I was in college. So especially I think when I started my first startup, all my friends, everyone that I met were like, "Tu bhi aaja, you are also in the startup. Come on, this is our startup. Let's do it." So that was the biggest mistake that I did. Ki friends ko just make time pass. I took in the startup and made them, partners, directors, visiting cards they diye sabko ki, you are the director and VP. So something like that happened at the very early stage, and I realized that's the biggest mistake, and especially the team building part. That is going to be the most biggest asset of your company, no matter investor who anybody is going to bet on. So make sure you have it right. Not necessarily you just find your friend, as I think everyone mentioned. You need to find that fit who complements your skill set. What are your skill set, and the other co-founder, what can he bring into the table? For my case, it was me. I'm good in business. The other founder is good in tech. So that's a great fit. So something on those lines. Look for people who are really great, who really want to achieve something in life, who have big dreams, who want to go with that grind, and most importantly is the character as a person. How is that person? Because you want to work with him for the next 6 to 7 years. He has to be someone who respects people. He has to be someone who is really good in terms of as a person altogether. So skills people will acquire, skills they learn. I mean, while you're building your startup, you'll learn a lot of skill sets. But character as a person is something that you don't learn overnight. So that these are the key things that
There
you
is this,
need to be.
there is this principle called hacks.
I just want to add something here.
Yeah, yes, Shripal.
So, it is so true what Saurabh just mentioned. I think I just want to add one more dimension, that complementary skills for founders is very, very important when we are adding or building our team. Second lesson which I learned, again in a very hard way. I think one of the question was what failure. We hired some folks from very large companies. When you raise capital, now you want to have a top deck with solid credentials. So we hired some folks from Ingram Micro, very large distribution, multi-billion-dollar companies. And we were growing, we were really agile, right? We always believed as a poor deck that, again, Satnik also said that, and Dhirubhai Ambani said, ideas are nobody's monopoly. Execution is, right? Can we beat on execution, velocity of execution? And we were like on our toes all the time, whether it is Saturdays or Sunday, there was no clockwork, we just working. When you bring somebody from a large enterprise, multinational, they may have very different skill set, but competency here is not very important. It is a very profound point I'm making. Compatibility here is more important than the competency. Competency can be developed. We can groom, even if somebody is within the internal resource, we can groom them, send to some training program. That can be groomed. But compatibility nahi milta hai. वो खरीदा भी जा नहीं सकता है. So that becomes a big challenge. So I think when you are building team, finding team which has similar vision and compatibility has to be given the topmost priority. Rest everything else should follow.
Amazing, amazing. So I just want to sort of highlight one point on compatibility. Very often, compatibility gets misconstrued as, he and me were the classmates for 4 years in engineering. We are good friends. But, like both of you mentioned, complementary skills are important. Both of us doing metallurgy, both of us doing mechanical, both of us doing ENC, electronics and communication or telecommunication, does not add value to the startup. So, you need to have, like Saurabh mentioned, somebody from this, somebody from tech, somebody from finance, maybe, kind of thing, that helps. But the question is, Saurabh mentioned about co-founder, but I'm still not looking at co-founder, because co-founder, at least there is a carrot in terms of, part ownership, some part of it. How do you hire your first employee?
Right. So I think with all these interns companies, I think platforms, it's become really easier, especially students are actively looking out for internships. So Internshala, hundreds of internship platforms are there. You can always put on your posting 3,000 rupees per post. You can just look for interns who are looking for people across. And I think what's important is, I think you don't have capital when you're starting out, and it becomes much more difficult now, especially when everyone has a startup idea. It is becoming more and more difficult for you to attract talent. So I think you will need to have some proof of concept, or at least some validation that, or at least you've done something in past which attracts the people that you are the person who can do this. So those elements have to be there, because it's really difficult for you to just have an idea, let's start. So that can happen when you have friends, good friends all together. But for someone who doesn't know you personally really well, it becomes very difficult. So at that stage, then you need to show that you've done something. You put in your own investment and build something, so that it's working, and then that's something that they'll sort of would want to bet on.
Sure.
Something.
Any views on that? How to hire your first employee?
So basically, I was in a stage, probably very similar to everyone, right? When you are probably hiring your first employee and you have no corporate experience at all, right? So the person who is sitting on the other side of the table, right? You are probably that person is more confident than you are, right? But I believe the first employees when you're hiring, right? It's more about references, etc. that happens, because as a startup, right? I'm definitely sure you cannot go to an exam micro and hire the first set of people, right? These are probably again just out of college kids, right? Or say I would say probably some references of people who know you, probably like the thing you're doing, right? But it's more like where I would say it's more about the idea that they believe in, right? And feels this could be something, and this is how I can add my value over here, right? So that value addition is something you have to recognize, right, and bet on. But on the other hand, if that person is coming on board, I'm definitely sure the only thing that brings him on board as a first employee is probably he or she has a dream around it, right? And definitely, the bigger the risk, the better the rewards. So I see that as probably the first ESOP pool that you create, employee stock options.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So they are rewarded in a larger way over a period of time.
Sure. You talked of rewards, you talked of risks, and you talked of ESOPs. So let me come to, I can see the clock that we are ending the hour here. So let me come to my final question here, which is, I'm sure it's in everybody's mind who has a startup, that whole big F, which is the funding. Now, so how do you, a lot of startups believe that they exist to get funding and exit. What are your views? Shripal, start with you.
So my view, if you'd have asked me this question, Advait, 10 years back, you would have got a completely opposite, different answer than probably the answer I would give. So I think funding is important, but when you raise funding and from whom you raise funding is even more important. I believe as much as you can bootstrap yourself, has to be bootstrapped. Because what happens is, when you raise capital, and believe it or not, I mean, we stay in this great country called India, and where whoever has funded, whether it is VC or PE or Angel, they have an upper hand. So you don't want, during your early journey, your decisions, your trajectory, your vision, your mission for the organization, your product goals, product dreams, you don't want them to be influenced just because you have raised some capital. So as much as possible, I would try to bootstrap. Second thing is, I would raise capital. Now I know, we have done some trials, product market fit is there. Now we are about to take off, right? We want to go, let's say, from 1 crore rupees to 10 crore rupees a monthly run rate, or 10 crore rupees to 50 crore rupees monthly run rate, where now what we need is growth capital. That is, I believe, is the right time to raise capital. Of course, there are different kind of businesses, different kind of nature, but even if it is required, I would raise initial capital, even if it is required, from initial friends and families or family offices who are supportive, and ideally go and raise capital from people who have done businesses, because there are two kind of people, right? There is two breed. One is pure financial capital investors. They are there for a reason, for a certain period of time, for a certain return. And then there are other entrepreneurs, investors who are willing to bet on ideas and people, and they have done their business, so they know all the nuances, ups and downs of business. So if given a choice, I would go to these guys, initially family offices, build a business to a stage, and then raise a much larger round from the institutional investors. That will be, my philosophy when it comes to funding.
So, Satnik, for your startup to succeed, people say right place, right time, right place. And now Shripal seems to suggest even for funding, you need to have the right time. You may not need funding from day one, or you should not have funding from day one, right? So, is there a right time to seek external funding?
So, just like any entrepreneur, probably one of the first ideas the moment you get your incorporation done is, how do I now raise my funds? Right? That's probably the first thought that comes in mind. But if you look back, why do new startups cannot raise money? Right? New startups cannot raise money because people who are who are sound enough to realize, how startups or say how valuations, etc. work, right? Most of these people, people who are just starting off, right? People who are just starting off, probably, just out of college. The moment they have just registered the company, the next thing they are looking at is probably raising some funds. Right? Why this thing fails? Because everyone knows, how much capital do you need, right? He does not have an answer because he has not, execution isn't there yet, right? So what is the customer acquisition cost we are looking at, right? What are the different channels, and what is what are the commissions in those platforms that you will be paying, right? So what is your net ask, and how are you going to manage that money is the first thing that a person has to understand and realize, and that can happen with execution. Once that happens, then probably I don't see funding as a challenge. Definitely could be institution, say family offices, etc., etc. There are hundreds of, you can just go to say someone like PwC or anyone and give a mandate, right? And I don't think the amount of the dollars is a challenge over here. It's about, do you know how to manage the money, and why, how much are you raising, why you are raising? If these two things are clear, funding is never an issue.
So it's very interesting thing. It's not just the how much part, it's also the why. Why part is important. Saurabh, any closing views?
Yeah, I think especially I would sort of suggest, I or myself had a long journey of funding. So key learnings or mistakes to sort of when fundraising. One, if you are not a student from IIT or BITS, maybe don't right away go for funding. Work on the idea, build it up to a scale, and then sort of start funding, because idea pay investment is like it's like just a dream, I think, and something which won't come true, especially 99% of the time. So that is something which is very difficult. So don't have your unicorns key, I'll get funded on my idea. You'll never get funded unless you're from tier 1 colleges. Second thing is, there are a lot of VC funds who are focusing on college students, especially grad capital, hostel funds. There are a lot of, at least 3 to 4 that I can name off, who are actively investing only in college students. VC firms who are investing in college students. So that's something that you can start applying for. And third, I think just focus on execution. That's what matters more than anything. Make sure the revenues come in. If those come in, then the top VCs would want to invest in you. So make sure that revenue is there, traction is good, and your execution is top notch. Make these 3 things right, and then go for funding. It will be a much easier picture, because I myself went to almost more than 100 investors. I pitched with just an idea and with just a business plan and pitch deck. So it didn't work. The moment I had revenue, we did about 65-70 lakhs in revenue in about 6 months' time. VC funds, angel investors lined up. Then we had so many people who wanted to invest, we had to say no to at least 7 of them. So that's what makes the difference.
Fantastic place to be. Yeah. That's a fantastic place to be. Okay. I know we've passed the time, but before I call in the student organizers for the closing remarks, for the thank you, whatever, I'll try and sneak in one more question to all of you. One quick, what they call rapid fire question. If you have to sort of have one word as a guru mantra advice for student entrepreneurs, in terms of preparation before they start, behind the scenes, preparation for startup, one word, what would that be? I'll start with you, Saurabh.
Execution.
Right.
2 words actually. First will be hustle.
Okay.
The second thing will be belief.
Belief. Okay. Excellent. Shripal?
Yeah, passion.
Wow. Okay. Execution, belief, passion. Okay. I'll stick to one words each. Great. Thanks. I didn't realize how quickly the hour passed away. But thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to all of you. And I'm sure the audience have taken a whole bunch of ideas and whole bunch of knowledge from this conversation. Over to you, Sumit.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing all this knowledge and learning with us. This has been one of the most insightful sessions that we have ever had on our Pune Startup Fest. And thank you so much, Advait sir. Thank you so much, Shripal sir. Thank you so much, 𝐿𝐿 sir. Thank you so much, Saurabh sir. Your insights have actually enlightened all the audience, and we are really looking forward to talking and learning from you more in the future. And I also thank all the people connected with us virtually for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you all and have a great time. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Have a nice evening, sir.
You too. Bye.
Hello. Can we stop live?